Week one of the Trump criminal trial is in the books. And Karen Friedman, Agnifilo, we have a jury. The jury was sworn in today. The actual jurors, along with the alternates. You won the bet with our co host, Michael Popak. The juror was fully sworn in and selected this week. A lot of other developments went down. And as we've been seeing too, gotta wait to the end of these court proceedings because a lot of the good stuff, a lot of the events often happen at the end of the day, and today was no different. We've been following along with these handy dandy scorecards that we're creating here at the Midas Touch Network because I'm a visual learner, so this helps me remember everything that goes down. We've been preparing these for day 1, 2, 3, and now here's Trump trial day 4. We'll put it up there. I'll give the recap. Karen Friedman, Agnifilo, I am your hype man. So I build the crowd. We wait for everyone to get here, and then I'll turn it over to you. Just to remind everybody, Karen Friedman, Agnifilo was the former number 2 at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. They're the ones prosecuting this case. Karen has worked there, had worked there for almost 30 years, has more experience there and better insight here than almost anybody or probably anybody in the world. So we're so honored, Karen, for you to be able to share your firsthand insight with us. Let's pull up the daily scorecard. Here's what went down in the Trump trial, day 4. The jury was selected and sworn in. When we started today, we had one alternate selected, so they had to select the 5 other alternates. That's what happened today. Donald Trump continued to fall asleep in the courtroom, and I had reported that it seems that Donald Trump was also passing gas, farting during the court proceedings. I had heard that from credible sources. Now, numerous people in the courtroom or familiar with that courtroom have been corroborating that as well. And I knew when I reported it, I was like, look, it's possible that some of the credible sources were saying that to me because, look, they know Midas Touch Network. But I said, look, it's not like a ha ha ha, Donald Trump farted. It's like this is real data that I'm getting. I'm glad that there are sources that are confirming it. What I hear is that Donald Trump's lawyers are just absolutely disgusted. They are revolted. You can get a sense of that in the courtroom by the stench. I'm not sure if it's impacting the district attorney yet or the jury yet, but it definitely is impacting Donald Trump's lawyers. You know, one of the things we're learning as well is that Donald Trump's lawyers had to prepare for him like a picture book so that he could be distracted, so he wouldn't be threatening the jurors and he wouldn't be falling asleep or even potentially passing gas, and which I think he still was doing, though, however, at least the latter he was doing. We learned about a Trump employee by the name of Natalie Harp, and her job is to follow Donald Trump around with a portable printer and to print out favorable articles for him and then turn over those articles. And then Donald Trump takes his Sharpie and then removes, even from the favorable articles that are selected, he removes or crosses out the portions that he doesn't like. And then they reprint it for him with the portions that he does like. And then he goes out with his picture book and then he shows the media his picture book. We went through some of these FEC filings, and Donald Trump is apparently paying Natalie Harp around $8,000 plus per month. I think she's been paid over $105,000 already to follow him around with this portable printer. Then we had a Sandoval hearing about what types of information and evidence could be introduced if Donald Trump took the stand. Karen Friedman Agnifilo will break that down. Towards the end of the proceedings, Donald Trump's lawyers complained that they don't know the witness order that the district attorney is calling. And we had previously reported that the district attorney, sometimes out of collegiality, or most times out of collegiality, and they work with the opposing counsel, they'll give a heads up of who's going to be called first. But given Donald Trump's consistent violations of the gag order, the district attorney said, we're not telling you who these witnesses are because Donald Trump will spend the weekend threatening, intimidating, and harassing them. Then at the end of the proceedings, Justice Merchan laid down the law, and he basically said, enough is enough. And we won't talk about the politics on the show because this is the legal analysis, but that's kind of a theme that I think we're seeing in the politics, in the political venue as well. Even with Speaker Johnson, just like enough is enough of this craziness. Just stop it. We're the United States of America, damn it. This is our legal system, damn it. And Justice Merchan basically said, I'm done ruling on these things. Stop sending me your legal briefs, Trump lawyers. It's enough. We are done. I've made my ruling. Opening statements will be on Monday. Show up. And then, like, at one point, Donald Trump thought the proceeding was over. And so he got up to walk away. And Justice Merchan yelled at him and said, sit down. I did not say you could leave yet. Sit down. And Trump threw his hands up. But there was that important moment where Justice Merchan said, this is my courtroom. Stop it. Enough is enough with this. My rulings are final. And then right before we went live, the appellate division rejected one of those pending motions that Donald Trump had to try to stop the trial for a change of venue. We had previously reported last week that they denied his emergency application, but then it was still actually pending before them on the non-emergency basis, and the appellate division rejected it. I think Justice Merchan just wanted to set the tone. We are in trial. Enough is enough. Opening statements are Monday. And Karen Friedman Agnifilo, it's been an honor to spend this week with you, learning from you, hearing your firsthand insights about this office, about this court. You've been before Justice Merchan on multiple occasions. You picked juries before him. You've been in that courtroom. Tell us, what have you seen today? Any surprises? Where are we now? Let me toss it to you.
Yeah, I'm reading the comments and everybody is talking about the man who sadly set himself on fire outside the courthouse today. And that was pretty dramatic, going on right literally across the street from the courthouse. It's where all the reporters are set up. And I was going to actually meet Michael Popak, our co-host, and Dina Dahl, who also appears on our network, who's in New York right now. And we were going to meet. We were going to record outside the courtroom. And just as we were about to go, literally this man lit himself on fire. So glad we weren't there. Pretty scary, pretty sad. And it just goes to show things like that don't happen in New York, even no matter what you see on TV or whatever. It's a pretty calm law and order place. We actually are one of the safest big cities in America, but it's pretty sad, and a sad state of things that the kind of people and protests and things that happen when Donald Trump is around. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that and say how sad it actually made me when I saw that happened. The guy's alive. What a horrible, horrible, painful way to have to be. But I wanted to acknowledge it because it's what everyone's talking about in the chat right now. And I was kind of just following it while you were going through the events of today. So in addition to, unfortunately, that outside the courtroom, in the courtroom, we have a full jury. The jury is sworn. That means jeopardy has attached. The whole jury stands up, raises their right hand. The judge asks, do you swear or affirm to uphold the whatever the swearing is. And they are a sworn juror. They are a unit now. They are a body. So Donald Trump has his jury. I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again because he likes to go out and say that the system's corrupt and it's Joe Biden and who has nothing to do with this case. This is a state court proceeding, that Alvin Bragg is biased, that the judge hates him and is biased. And he also uses some very colorful negative language that I won't use about all of them. And it doesn't really matter because they aren't deciding his fate. It's the jury that's deciding his fate. And it's a jury that he chose. Donald Trump had peremptory challenges, for cause challenges. Many, many, many people left because they said they couldn't be fair and impartial. There's an unlimited number of those challenges. So more than half the people left because they said they couldn't be fair and impartial. And of the people who were left, you got to pick and choose who you liked and didn't like, what magazines they read or newspapers or what they did in their free time, whatever you can glean from that, things on their social media. And Donald Trump was seen conferring with his lawyers when you were picking, do you want this one or not that one? Or do you want to use your challenges on this one? And so there are people who were left on the jury, which means that and allowed on the jury, especially in the beginning before he ran out of the peremptories, which he didn't run out until the very end. So yeah, he could have used them and he didn't. So these are jurors he picked. Okay. These are his jurors, a jury of his peers, of New Yorkers, and they're from all over the world. He doesn't just have a Manhattan group of jurors. Yes, they physically live in Manhattan now and they're residents of Manhattan, but some of them were born elsewhere or raised elsewhere or come from elsewhere, including other areas of the United States and the world. So, so I think he's got a great jury for him that he chose, that the people chose, and it's them and them alone who will decide whether he is guilty of the 34 counts of falsifying business records in the first degree, a Class E felony. So we have a jury, and after jury selection, after they had a jury, then they came back to finish up the pre-trial discussions and motion practice and things that happen before every before every trial. So one of them is a Sandoval hearing or a Sandoval motion that the court was hearing, and what that is basically prosecutors who want to cross-examine a defendant on prior bad acts or prior things that they've done that are outside the scope of the actual crime charged. They have to give notice and they have to tell the judge, these are the things that I want to talk about because I think they are, if he testifies, only if he testifies, I want to cross-examine him on these things because they're relevant. They go to his credibility. It's not fair that he holds himself out to be one thing, but actually is something else. And so you don't want to allow someone to mischaracterize themselves as somebody who's never done anything wrong, etc. And so they gave notice of the things that they wanted to be allowed to cross-examine him on. They want to talk about the lack of credibility, the fact that the judge and Goron in the civil fraud trial, where he was fined $375 plus million for civil fraud, that the judge found him not credible. For example, when he went outside and claimed when he was talking to the reporters that he wasn't referring to his law secretary, right? He lied about that. And the judge found that he lied about that and found him to be not credible. So they want to be able to talk about that because, look, credibility is always an issue when you are testifying, when you stand up and you swear to tell the truth, and you're talking to a jury, it is about your credibility. And so if he testifies, his credibility is relevant. So they want to talk about that. They want to talk about the E. Jean Carroll case. They want to talk about a few other issues, and they were going back and forth. Of course, his lawyers did not want those bad facts to come in. In fact, they argued that the facts underlying the civil fraud case are too similar because in there he's charged with lying on documents, right? And they said that's way too similar to have been charged with lying in documents in the civil fraud case, right? When he lied on his statement of financial condition and said that things like, oh, my apartment's 3 times the size, or it's worth 25 times what it's actually worth, or just these insane lies that were on these documents. What his lawyers said were, look, even though he was found to have done that, it's a different legal standard. It was a preponderance of the evidence standard, which is much lower than the beyond a reasonable doubt standard. And so I think that would be confusing to the jury. And it's too similar to what he's charged with here, because here he's also charged with falsifying business records. And so they think that it should not come in for that reason, because it'll make it seem like he has a propensity to commit crime. And that is something that actually is not allowed under the law. You're not allowed to suggest just because someone did something before, that means they must have done it here. That's impermissible, because just because someone did something before doesn't mean they did it here, and it doesn't absolve the prosecutor from having to prove each and every element of the crime beyond a reasonable doubt. So propensity is a no-no, a big no-no, and so that's what they are arguing on Donald Trump's side. And so they've been going back and forth on those issues. The judge actually reserved decision and said, I will let you know, which is not unusual. What I think he might do is he might wait and see if Donald Trump actually is going to testify. And if he does, then he will let the prosecutor know what it is that he is going to, how he's going to rule. Although I think he's going to say it ahead of time, because if I were a defense attorney on this case, I would say, how is he supposed to decide if he wants to testify if he doesn't know what your Sandoval ruling is yet, and he doesn't know what you're going to allow in. So I think you're going to see that probably early next week or at some point next week. So we'll get a ruling from the judge. Sometimes they rule from the bench, they just say what they're going to allow. Sometimes they do a hybrid or a almost like a sanitized version of what the prosecution's asked for. It's not an all or nothing proposition. So they might allow them to ask generally about something, if not specific, or the underlying facts of it, because it might be too similar. So the judge will do a balancing and say, okay, I'm not going to let you hold yourself out as someone who never lies on business records, but maybe it is too similar. So I'm going to sanitize it in some way and say that it's you, whatever. I don't know what he's going to say, but that's what he's going to do. He's going to weigh these issues and come up with some version that's fair to both sides. So that's what the judge is doing in the Sandoval hearing.
Karen, can I ask you, do you think that Trump would ever testify, or is this kind of a charade that he's doing and he's going to say, I was going to testify, but it was so unfair. I would have testified, but the judge is now allowing this and this in, and so I'm going to whine and just feel bad for me. I was really going to do it, but look what the judge ruled. I don't know. In my view, this is all kind of a setup so Donald Trump could whine about he was going to testify, but the judge made rulings that are consistent with Sandoval rulings that you've seen in your career. That's routine and rudimentary. What do you think? You think there's any chance he actually testifies? Or
I do, and I've said that publicly and openly for a while now, and everybody disagrees with me, because the prevailing wisdom is defendants typically don't testify, especially someone like him who's a serial liar. You can't control him. Do not typically. If you're a lawyer, you will tell them not to testify. But I've been saying all along, I think he will. Frankly, he has nothing to lose. Right? He has absolutely nothing to lose. He thinks that that Manhattan juries is against him, and he thinks he's his best spokesperson. He doesn't listen to anybody, and he's testified in his other trials. Right? He testified in E. Jean Carroll. He testified in the civil fraud case. So I don't see why he does. I think more defendants should testify, to be honest with you. I think although you're not allowed to, if you're a jury, you're not allowed to hold it against a defendant who's not testifying. You're not allowed to say, well, they must be guilty, because if they were innocent, they'd be jumping up and down. If I were charged with something I didn't do, I'd be jumping up and down. You wouldn't be able to keep me off the stand. And jury's not allowed to consider that. The people still have to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. But I'll tell you, I've seen cases get tossed because of defendants testifying. Jury, all he needs to do is convince one juror. And because don't forget, the jury has to find beyond a reasonable doubt unanimously. So if there's one juror who believes him or somehow falls for his, there's something hypnotic about him, it seems like, 'cause people will follow him no matter what. If he can get somebody, on his side, they can hang the jury and therefore have a mistrial, and then you'd have to retry it. So I think he's going to. to be honest with you. If you want, since I won the lunch bet with Popak, if you want to make a lunch bet with me, Ben, and I'll say he's going to testify. If you want, I'm doing pretty well here for lunch. So
I want to make the lunch bet with you. I'm going to say he's not going to testify.
all
However,
right.
I am brutally rooting for you to win that, because there's nothing more I want than to actually see him testify. And look, Trump's lawyers, if you're listening to this, look, I think I'm worried about Trump being a witness. So maybe Trump wants to testify, put him up there, hold your nose. We'll see how that goes. But I don't know. What does he have to lose? I mean, we've seen Donald Trump's testimony in depositions before. We saw the E. Jean Carroll deposition where he confused E. Jean Carroll with his wife. And we saw how Donald Trump said, fortunately or unfortunately, when you're a famous, wealthy man, they let you sexually assault women. We've seen what his testimony looks like. And if he wants to get up there and it opens the door to all of these things, I mean, look, I think Donald Trump at his core is a very scared and weak and feeble person. If you think about when he sued Michael Cohen for $500 million, why didn't Donald Trump testify in his own lawsuit where he sued Michael Cohen? Donald Trump, and granted, that was a civil case. It's not a criminal case. His liberty and freedom wasn't on the line. But he was so scared to sit for a deposition in a case where he sued Cohen that he dismissed the case after all the bravado and the bluster. So I actually think that his psychology, his pathology, he's weak. He's scared, but I actually hope you win that bet. But everybody heard the bet. It's a friendly bet. It's just lunch. I want you to win that bet. Karen, let's talk
Yeah.
about some of what we're going to say.
No, I was just going to say one more thing, which is, again, I can't think like him at all, but trying to think like him, he thinks that this is a Manhattan jury. He said this, right? It's a Manhattan jury. It's against me. And so that's why I say he will think he has nothing to lose, because he thinks they're already leaning, that they're going to convict him. So he has nothing to lose. But you might be right. Whatever it is,
I don't want to get into the identities of the jurors or go, this one's a this or that, or, I mean, we don't know their names, but we do know their professions. And I do want to be careful about saying anything that could identify this juror, because they're no longer prospective jurors or that juror. But what do you think overall about this jury pool? Do you feel, based on everything that you know, that this jury could be fair and impartial? We know that a prior juror, number 2, left the jury pool because she felt intimidated after Fox had did a segment basically that outed her, and she said she can no longer be fair or impartial. There was someone who took that seat who, when you look through the social media behavior and habits versus the old juror number 2, you go, is this person, because they're on this social media platform, more inclined to feel a certain way? But I mean, the Manhattan District Attorney's office and their abilities to select a fair and impartial jury. Generally the identities of these jurors, not who they are, but their backgrounds, the same public information that everybody knows and has been reporting on. How do you feel about it?
So interestingly, I've never used a jury consultant, but I'm listening to these jury consultants that are on TV and talking, and they're saying how unusual it is to have lawyers on the jury. And I thought that was really interesting, because I've always had professionals or lawyers or people on my juries. It's never been a problem or an issue. It was just funny to me that they would even have that as a statement, but who knows? Especially in a case like this, I would think you want someone analytical and smart, because this is a white collar case. It's a little bit, not really complicated, but a little bit complicated, because you have to corruptly do certain things and willfully and with the intent to defraud. And I mean, the elements are a little bit, it's not like when you shoot someone on the street and they die. everybody can understand that, right? This is you have to have intended to either commit or conceal or aid another crime, but you didn't have to actually commit or the other crime. So it's a little bit it's a little bit not complicated, but it's a little headier than your typical violent crime case. And so I would think that both sides would want someone who in the jury room who could help explain that, who could understand it and help shepherd that through, whether it's a no matter what side you're on, you want someone who can kind of understand that so the jury's not confused. So I found that interesting because I didn't think that when I saw the makeup of the jury. It looks like it's a mixture of men and women. It's a mixture of a cross section of people, typical cross section of Manhattan people, and most importantly, people inside the courtroom who I was talking to my friend Norm Eisen, who's been on the pod, and he said that he thought this was a really good, fair jury. He got the flavor of it because since he's in the courtroom, he could hear their answers. He can, you can tell by the tone of someone's voice if they're earnest or if they're anxious or if they're scared or if they're aggressive. All the things that you miss when you're reading a cold transcript. And so he said that he thinks this is a really good jury, that they seem thoughtful and smart, and that the people who would not be fair and impartial were taken off the jury. The people who would not make good jurors, who would not be qualified, were removed. I mean, that the system worked. It was interesting to me that also today in the appellate division, Trump's lawyers were arguing. You talked about this change of venue motion, saying they can't get a fair jury, but they have a jury, right? If you couldn't get a fair jury, this would have been going on we'd be going on for weeks. Excuse me, I'm just like going to sneeze. I feel like I'm coming down with something, but for weeks and weeks and weeks, but that didn't happen. It's not like they filled the courtroom with 100 people and 100 people walked out. It's very ordinary, this particular jury selection. All the parade of horribles that people thought were going to happen did not happen. And so I really think that the jury seems good. It seems like a typical jury. And there were some people who watch Fox News, and there's some people who follow Trump on Truth Social, and there's a whole mixture. So, but they all said, look, my feelings, my politics have nothing to do with this. It's about the evidence. It's about being fair and impartial in this particular case, and that's all it is. So I feel good about this jury.
And how do you feel about the tone that Justice Juan Merchan is setting here, really powerfully controlling the courtroom? There was this moment that a lot of people are discussing at the end of today's proceedings where Trump stood up at the end of the motions hearing to leave, and Justice Merchan very quickly rebuked him and said, "Sir,
sit down.
Have a seat, sir. Sit down." And Donald Trump put his hands up and then sat down, and then Justice Merchan said, "Thank you, sir. Thank you." And Donald Trump, and you see the power dynamics here, what they should be. I mean, I think the fact that we got through a week of jury selection the way we did is also Justice Merchan ruling his courtroom like it's his courtroom, law and order. Justice Merchan, you've been in that courtroom. You've selected juries there. Maybe talk a bit about Justice Merchan's reputation. And do you think he's acting consistent with that reputation thus far?
Yeah. So you can tell. So Judge Merchan has a reputation of being very down the middle, very fair. He is not a people's judge. He's not a defense judge. He's a judge's judge, right? He's just the guy who's applying the law to the facts. He's not biased in any way. I've never seen any evidence of that. I've never seen a hidden agenda. I've never seen him being anything other than just he really does the right thing. And he's also not overly harsh. He is he's the chief, he's the head judge of the mental health court, where people who have mental health issues and are charged with violent crime and other crimes, felonies, he gives them treatment instead of incarceration. And ultimately he monitors their case, and then there's a graduation. And I used to go to all the graduations that were really moving to see how some people could be diverted to a different path, and he was always the judge who has done that. And so he's just a thoughtful person who really treats everybody and every person who comes before him, every defendant, as an individual. And he is very thoughtful about not only what happens to them, but about the law. And the other thing about him is he's very he's very measured. He's very calm. He's very kind of, he doesn't get excited. He's not a yeller. Doesn't raise his voice. He's a man of very few words. He just kind of rules his courtroom with a steady command. But he's just sort of a wise, steady guy. And I see that happening here because he's clearly losing his temper a little bit. But you can only tell because he'll say things like he's very deadpan, right? So at some point he said something like the Trump's lawyers keep wanting to relitigate issues that they don't like the rulings for. So they'll try to relitigate things. Like today they tried to relitigate the Access Hollywood tape issue where the judge, they have argued this to death, right? That the prosecution wants to be able to put in the tape and talk about it because they think it goes to the election, the intent to commit an election crime or conceal an election crime. And the defense doesn't want it in. And so the judge, in a typical judge way, kind of did a compromise. He said, I could see why it's relevant because the information is definitely relevant. So yes, you can talk about it to the people, to the prosecutor, but I'm not going to let the tape itself come in because I think seeing Donald Trump's mannerisms, hearing his voice, it's highly prejudicial. I mean, what he's not saying is, hearing someone say, I will sexually assault someone with impunity, because that's essentially what he's confessing to do, that's highly prejudicial. So I'm not going to allow, in his own words, even though that's what he did and said. So I'm going to compromise, and I'm not going to let the prejudicial part come in. I'm just going to let the facts come out so that at least you can still get that out without it being overly prejudicial. So that's a huge concession and compromise, showing that the judge is a fair guy. And Donald Trump's lawyers don't like that. They still want him to not be able to bring that in at all. So they're relitigating it. They're bringing it up again. And you can tell Judge Merchan is losing his patience because he'll say things like, I've already ruled on that. And at some point you will accept my ruling. That's his way of kind of punctuating the fact that it's standing. It's not going to do it again. He's not, like I said, he's not a yeller or a screamer, but he's very firm and he will stick to his ground.
Well, we have 15,000 people watching concurrently this live here, making this the #1 broadcast covering the Trump criminal trial in all of the world on YouTube. Thank you for trusting us with this coverage. For those just joining, every day we've been keeping track with the handy dandy scorecard right there. Trump trial day 4. Let me recap briefly, and then let me show you what just went down as Donald Trump was exiting the courtroom today, where he seemed to confuse this case with the other case, the E. Jean Carroll case, which he lost, which was a civil case. So here's what happened, though, in the criminal trial today. The jury was selected and sworn in. Let's put that Trump scorecard back up if we can. Trump was sleeping again in the courtroom. It was reported to me by sources in the courtroom that Donald Trump was passing gas and that his lawyers were quite disgusted and revolted by that. And I said, look, I'm not saying this in a way to even, make fun of him. I'm just giving you all a data point about what was happening there. And it's been corroborated by others familiar with these proceedings. So as I said, take it however you want to take it. But like here's George Conway saying, I heard this too. I'm not kidding. the court's going to have to issue more than a gag order here. There's been a lot of other statements like that. Pesach Latin, who knows people in the courtroom, said, as I mentioned yesterday, several reporters told me while he slept he would fart loudly and then grunt and move. And look, the point about me bringing this up is we know Trump's lawyers are shifting seats. It's a data point that you can reflect on. And as he sleeps and kind of goes back, he seems to be passing gas. I don't know if it will be impacting the jurors, if it will be impacting the district attorney. His own lawyers seem to be revolted by it. They've given him a picture book to go through, which has these headlines that are purportedly flattering to Donald Trump, and he goes through this picture book, and then he has his Sharpie and he takes off things that he doesn't like, and then he goes out to the press and shows them his picture book. I mean, just odd behavior for anybody. But, there you have it. We talked about the Sandoval hearing about the types of evidence that the district attorney's office would introduce if Donald Trump takes the stand. Karen Friedman Agnifilo shared her bold prediction that she thinks Donald Trump will actually testify in this. I disagreed with that at my own peril. Going through the list right here, Donald Trump's lawyers complained that they don't know the witness list. The district attorney's keeping the witness list from them because Donald Trump violated the gag order. So why would they share the order of the witnesses? And at the end of today's proceedings, Justice Merchan laid down the law, told Trump's lawyers to just stop it and cut it out, stop filing things over and over again once he ruled. Opening statements will start on Monday. And then we got the appellate division ruling rejecting Donald Trump's motion to stay these proceedings. Previously, the appellate division rejected Donald Trump's emergency application. This was the full hearing on it. And so Donald Trump got more bad news. Now, show you some of these clips of Donald Trump exiting the courthouse today. Let's go through some of these. This is where Donald Trump confused the case that he was on. He appears to reference the E. Jean Carroll case in the in this criminal trial, which they're not the same things, but Donald Trump wanted to say that I have no idea who E. Jean Carroll was. Here, let's play this clip.
So this is just a concerted witch hunt, whether it's Judge Kaplan with a person I have no idea until they called and said they're suing us. I had no idea who this person was, or this judge.
I'm not sure if this is an improvement or not an improvement from yesterday's press conference where Trump was flipping through his picture book. Here, Donald Trump talks about how no business is coming into the city. That's one of the lies he likes to spread. Let's play this clip.
They're hearing, and the trial starts on Monday, which is long before a lot of people thought. The judge wants us to go as fast as possible. That's for his reasons, not for my reasons. And this is really a concerted witch hunt, very simple. Everything you heard in there, this is a witch hunt by numerous judges, Democrat judges. You take a look at it, and Gorin is a whack job. What he did was a disgrace. It's being reviewed by the appellate division, and I hope they do justice because everybody's looking, and no business is coming into the city, none whatsoever. They're looking at that case. That case is a threat to democracy, frankly, what took place with the AG, a crooked AG, Letitia James, who campaigned in the fact that I'm going to get Trump. That's all she said for 2 years. And people don't want to see this stuff.
Karen, this is a man, if we want to even call him that, who is actually deeply unwell. As I watch that, I actually see someone decomposing before my eyes. We know what's happening in the courtroom itself. I reported about the sources that talk about him sleeping, passing gas in the courtroom. But watching that right there, as he's talking about all of these other cases and other judges and spreading these insane conspiracy theories, the whining, the way he looks, like this is actually someone decomposing before our eyes. And if it wasn't somebody like him who's hurt so many people, I may want to feel sad or bad for someone in such a debilitated condition. But this is someone who is so hateful, so vile, and has behaved. But I can't help but reflect upon that right there, Karen, as I watch that. What do you make of all of this?
I when we do these live things, I have to stop reading the comments because our followers, the people who are listening and watching along with us, are just so clever and so funny, and I'm having a really hard time not laughing because they're just hilarious. One of my favorites was law and odor, as a comment for what's going on here. Anyway, so it like I said, it's hard to keep a straight face. I don't know, maybe I'm like a 9-year-old boy, but fart jokes never get old. So look, next week is going to be opening statements Monday, just in the morning, and the judge is giving the afternoon off because of Passover. And on Tuesday, they are having the hearing on the gag order. So that will be going on Tuesday. And witnesses, I bet, will start Wednesday. That's what I think the schedule is going to be. But we'll have a little more of a sense on Monday about what the exact schedule is. But the trial starting. There's almost nothing left. I mean, I think the defense attorneys are going to try again to relitigate all the things they don't like, and you're going to see them do that throughout the trial. That's what defense attorneys do, and sometimes prosecutors do, and you'll see the judge losing his patience with that. But I think the trial is starting. Jury selection's over. All the pretrial issues are over. There's 6 alternates because hopefully, God willing, nothing happens over the weekend in terms of any jurors getting cold feet or getting scared, or the things that can happen in a case like this when Donald Trump hopefully will not say anything or tweet anything that'll upset them or scare them. And so anything can happen. It shouldn't. It should just be opening statements Monday, and then this hearing Tuesday, and probably witnesses Wednesday. That's what I think is going to happen.
Karen, opening statements, not to be confused with an opening argument, or it's not an argument, right? Maybe you can tell our viewers and listeners what an opening statement is, and how the criminal defendants, their lawyers, are not required in New York to actually give an opening statement, but the parties, their lawyers, are not supposed to argue. You're supposed to lay out what the evidence is going to show, right? And provide a roadmap to the jury of what they will see. Then at the end of the proceeding, you have the closing argument where you actually get to argue and say, here's what we demonstrated, and make your actual argument. So maybe just describe how long is that going to last? What's the typical procedure? Do you expect Trump's lawyers to give an opening statement? And what does it mean, opening statement versus argument?
So on Monday, the first thing that will happen is the jury will come in, and the judge will give them their preliminary, his preliminary instructions, the instructions he gives to every jury when a jury is created and formed and sworn. He gives certain instructions, and so they will last maybe 30 minutes, and he'll say things like, he'll explain to them what a trial is and how a trial will proceed. And he'll say things like, you are the finder, only you are the finder of facts, just you and only you. Me as the judge, all I do is I'm the ultimate person who says what the law is, and you apply the facts to the law that I tell you what it is. He will then also tell them that the trial will probably last around, I think he'll say probably 6 to 8 weeks, with Wednesdays off. Normally he'll give them scheduling stuff. And then he'll say the way a trial is going to go, he'll say certain things like, a defendant is innocent until proven guilty. So this defendant, like all other defendants, sit here cloaked with with innocence around him. He's completely innocent until he's proven guilty. And you have to always have that in your mind. And you have to understand that there is no burden whatsoever for a defendant. There is no burden of proof. They don't have to, and they have no obligation to do anything. They don't have to open, they don't have to close, they don't have to call any witnesses, they don't have to cross-examine any witnesses. It is the people, that's what they call it in New York. It's the people of the state of New York. So the people's burden, 100%. And they're the ones who have the burden, and they have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt what each and every element of the crime. The defendant here is charged with 34 counts of falsifying business record in the first degree. And at the end of the trial, I will come back to you and charge you and tell you what the law is. He'll also say that the people will have to give an opening statement, that the opening statement is required by law, that the people have to give it, and they have to discuss every charge and every element in their opening statement, and they have to make a prima facie case in their opening statement. But again, the defendant is not required to give an opening. He may give one, but you are not to infer anything from the fact that the defendant may not, through his lawyer, may not give an opening statement. Same thing about defendant testifying. It's his choice. No, don't hold anything against him if he doesn't testify or if they don't call any witnesses. They're going to say, he'll say things also. He'll remind them every single day about the media. He'll say, don't read or if you turn on the TV, turn it off. If you're looking on the computer, switch to something else. Don't talk to anyone about this. Don't talk to your friends or family. Don't talk to each other about it. You're not allowed to talk about the evidence to each other. If you're a juror, you have to wait until deliberations. You can talk to the juries. He'll also tell them that you can't talk to the lawyers. If you see them in the hallway, if you see them in a bathroom, if you see them in an elevator, or Donald Trump, you're not allowed to talk to them. And if they're not going to say hello to you, they're not being rude. They are actually not allowed to say anything to you, and you're not allowed to say anything to you. He'll tell them also, if someone approaches you or if anyone says anything or does anything, this is what you do. You call me and tell me immediately. And, so he gives them these preliminary instructions that are along those lines. And then the next thing that happens is the people will give an opening statement, and it's a statement. It's not an argument, as you said. And the only time you're allowed to argue is at the end of the case in your summation. You're allowed to argue what the facts, make your points, make your argument. Your opening is a preview of what you intend to prove and what you think the evidence will show at trial. That's what an opening statement is. I think the opening statement will last an hour at most. If you're the prosecutor, maybe 45 minutes, maybe an hour and 15 minutes, but that's about the length that you will see the opening statement. I think that's typical of what an opening statement is. I think the defense will give an opening. It's kind of a time when you're going to try to connect with the jury. One thing that I'm sure is being batted around is who will give the opening on behalf of the people and who will give the summation. The summation is considered, and again, just in the office, in the Manhattan DA's office, and the summation is considered the most prestigious, important part of a trial. Whoever gets to do the summation, it's like it's like the two things that are the most prestigious, most important parts are if you're going to cross-examine the defendant and the summation. But that's what you would see. And I think if I were to guess, Josh Steinglass, because he's the first to question the jury, I would guess he's going to do the summation. And I would guess that he'll either also do the opening or he'll have Susan Hoffinger, the other lead lawyer, do the opening, and they'll split it up that way. Some people don't like to split it up because they think you want to connect with the jury both times, but a lot of times they'll do that. So that would be my guess of how they're going to split it up. And then they'll start calling witnesses. And as you pointed out and alluded to, normally the custom is that you always tell your opponent who your witnesses are the next day, because that way they can prepare, right? They can focus their preparation, because court goes till 4:30, 5 o'clock. You get home, you eat dinner at 6:30. You have to get up early the next day, but you're going to spend the next 5 hours prepping for the next day, right? That's when they do all the work. And so if you've got this trial that's got mountains and mountains of discovery and statements from everybody, of course the defense is going to want to know who the first witness is going to be so that they can prepare, get all their notes, etc. And so they asked for that courtesy. It's not required by law, but they asked for that courtesy to know which of the witnesses that they're going to be calling is coming first. And the prosecution said they were not going to let them know because Donald Trump has engaged in witness intimidation through his tweets and calling them names, etc. So, and then the defense attorney asked the judge to order the prosecution to tell them who it is, because they want to have the weekend to get to prepare for whoever the first witnesses will be. And the judge says, no, you forfeited that courtesy because of the fact that your client is out there making these statements. So, it's just was stunning to me. Actually, it's huge. I don't think I think I've heard of it, but it was in like a serial killer, mafia gang case where they were worried about witness safety. I've never seen it in a case like this. So it's really
serial killer, mafia, gang case. That's how Donald Trump is behaving, though, and it's sick to watch that, but that's how he's behaving. Even the mafia is not out there posting tweets or social media posts attacking the judge's daughter or attacking family members or posting photos of themselves with baseball bats next to the prosecutor, next to Alvin Bragg. I mean, and that's what Donald Trump's doing every day, acting like a petulant third grade bully, and you have to take action. I'm proud of the law and order, no nonsense approach right here. Trump fumes as judge orders him to sit like a dog, a powerful headline there. And I think the fumes part was picked there very purposefully and intentionally by the Daily Beast. And look, Karen, I see a lot of people in the comments saying, look, Ben, when you're reporting on this, you should have a sense of humor. And I get it. What I want to be clear, though, is I just wanted to be able to communicate and convey the data as I received it. And if I was, laughing about it, I don't think I would be an effective communicator. I'm glad that there are other people who have since corroborated the fact that, Donald Trump appears to be fairly consistently passing gas in the courtroom and farting next to his attorneys, and they're just disgusted by it. And I want to keep a straight face when I report on it because I think it's a data point that people should know about. Again, my sources could be incorrect, although they're very credible sources in the courtroom, and it's now been corroborated as well, I think, by others in the courtroom. And you can do with that data what you want, but it may play a factor in this case. It actually may. I don't know if it will reach the jury, if it will reach the district attorney. I don't know, but we will see. I want to remind everybody that the Justice Merchan emojis exist right now. That's pretty big. That's pretty big. So you can put those Justice Merchan emojis, become a member of our YouTube channel. Look, we've got the most people watching this YouTube live than any other coverage of the trial in the world. And that's thanks to you, Karen Friedman Agnifilo, and this incredible Midas Mighty community. If you want to support the growth of this independent media platform, we don't have outside investors. You can do that at patreon.com/MeidasTouch, patreon.com/MEIDASTOUCH. It's patreon.com/MeidasTouch. Also, you can check out store.MeidasTouch.com for some great pro-democracy gear. 100% union made, 100% made in the USA. That's store.MeidasTouch.com. Check out the gear. Karen, let me toss it to you for your final summary of what went down. I want to remind everybody that there will be a new live Legal AF with me and Michael Popak on Saturday, tomorrow. That's 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. Then Karen and I will resume our daily briefs with you live here Monday morning and then Monday afternoon. This is your number one destination for all breaking news, live coverage, and summaries regarding the Trump criminal trial. So make sure to sign on live early in the morning on Monday and afternoon as soon as court concludes. Karen, let me let you take it away.
Yeah, so look, every morning you and I are going to tell everyone what to expect and what is happening that day. And then every afternoon, as soon as court ends, we're going to interpret exactly what happened for everybody. And so if anyone wants to get the unvarnished we're following people who are in the courtroom. We are talking to people who are there, who know what's going on, who know what's happening, and we will present it to you. I will give you as much of my insight as I can. I worked at that office for 30 years. I've tried many cases in that building. Yes, it can get cold or hot or all the other things. It's not the nicest place you've ever been. And I've picked juries there. I've been in front of Judge Mershon. And so you're going to get a perspective that is, that's somebody who has experience in that exact courtroom. So there's 18,000 people watching this with us now. I'm just absolutely humbled that so many people are getting their news from this particular show. And I just want to thank everybody for coming here and for following us throughout this trial, and also for providing me with a little chuckle today. So.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. My friend Don Lemon just started a YouTube channel. I know he's live right now on his YouTube channel. So if you want to stop there, you can tell Don Lemon that I said hello. I know he's been doing some great YouTube stuff. He's had a lot of our guests on, a lot of our co-hosts on his network. I think it's helpful to support other creators. And I grew up watching Don. So, you could tell Don I say hello if you want to go check out his channel. I know he's live right now. Karen, always a pleasure. Make sure you all subscribe. You may think you're subscribed to this channel because you check it out so frequently, but then you actually didn't click the subscribe button. So make sure you actually hit the subscribe button, because then it will alert you when all these videos come up. It's got a lot of good benefits. So it's free to hit subscribe on YouTube. So hit subscribe. You should also subscribe to the Legal AF audio podcast. Just search wherever you get audio podcasts. This time when you're walking or driving or whatever, you can listen to us on audio. Just search Legal AF wherever you get your audio podcast. And just thank you all so much. It's so incredible to have this beautiful, wonderful pro-democracy community where we can lead with law and order, truths, facts, evidence. I love it. Thank you all so much. Karen, Michael Popak, and myself, we appreciate you so, so much. Thank you. Thank you. We'll see you next time. An eventful week, an honor spending it with you, KFA, and all of you Midas Mighty and Legal AFers. Shout out to Legal AF and shout out to the Midas Mighty.
Enough! Send it to the big house, not the White House. Get the new exclusive tees, mugs, and stickers right now at store.midastouch.com. That's store.midastouch.com.